Have you ever read a memoir set in your hometown and it reframed your ideas about where you came from? Welcome to Audiobook Reviews in 5. This is Jana, also known as Yana, and today I'm reviewing They Said This Would Be Fun, Race, Campus Life, and Growing Up by Eternity Martis, read by the author. Eternity Martis is an award-winning Toronto-based journalist and editor whose work has been featured in the Huffington Post, Vice, Chatelaine, Maclean's, Flair, CBC, The Walrus, Refinery 29, and many more. This is her first audiobook, and so I'm especially impressed by her brilliant narration, because that's a real skill to master all on its own, on top of authorship. This title is promoted as a powerful, moving memoir about what it's like to be a student of color on a predominantly white campus. Martis grew up in Toronto and was excited to move away to Western University in London, Ontario, which is about a 2-hour drive from Toronto. Her actual experience at Western, which took place less than 10 years ago, was deeply marred by racialized treatment, microaggressions, and marginalization to some extent. Before I discuss more details, I should mention that I was born in London and I lived there for many years, so this audiobook resonated with me in a more personal way than some others. I also attended Western University, so I was intimately familiar with many of the references that Martis makes to the city and the university campus. I loved Martis's sarcastic sense of humor. One of my favorite parts of her book was the chapter about a relationship she calls her Italian-Greek tragedy, because she frames this with traditional Greek chorus asides to audiobook listeners, and I was actually laughing out loud at several points. Her stories about awkward moments and outright hostility experienced while riding public transit in London also hit pretty close to home. And even though I'm white, many of her descriptions of interacting with ignorant or intolerant Londoners reminded me of why I grew up wanting to move to Toronto, which I first attempted at age 18, around the same age Martis was when she moved to London. One especially troubling element of university life that Martis highlights with some much-needed candor is binge drinking culture. Listening to this audiobook brought back some unpleasant memories of parties and social events at university where heavy drinking seemed to amplify the awkward and even boorish and infuriatingly entitled behavior of certain students who seemed completely oblivious or cavalier about their wealth and privilege. And although Martis concedes that Western University has a reputation as a party school, she cites examples from other cities too, illustrating that this type of behavior is common on multiple Canadian campuses. On a side note for future discussion, part of me was left wondering if university students might benefit from more guided psychedelic trips for self-discovery versus chronic alcohol use. Anyways, this is a fantastic listen if you're interested in learning more about racialized experience in a Canadian university and how racism complicates existing challenges faced by most students, especially women. And these topics have not really been openly addressed or discussed in a meaningful way in Canada. Although Martis's work is highly personal, her stories reveal systemic issues with anti-Black racism that likely impact many other similar institutions. And I'm interested in hearing more about these in the future. Finally, I suspect this will be an eye-opening listen or read for students and their parents who believe that Canadian campus life is unmarred by the same challenges more openly discussed in the United States. That's all for this episode of Audiobook Reviews in 5. Thanks for listening. If you've not yet done so, please subscribe to Audiobook Reviews in 5 on your favorite platform. By subscribing, you help increase the profile of this podcast and chances of other listeners finding it. I look forward to checking in with you all again soon. Please stay safe and be well.